Thank you, Dr. Ahmed. Our final speaker tonight is Associate Director of the Henry Jackson Society, Associate Editor of The Spectator magazine, and a well-known commentator on issues of religion, extremism and immigration, Mr. Douglas Murray.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. It's, well, I was going to say it's a pleasure to be back in Cambridge. It isn't entirely. I've been dreading this debate for many reasons which will, I think, become clear if they haven't been clear already. It's a very awkward position to be in. First of all, because I am not in agreement with very much said by my own side most of the time. I remember being on Newsnight some years ago calling for Owen Williams's resignation as Archbishop when he made his catastrophic intervention into the matter of Sharia in the UK. I remember actually being on a phone with Tariq. I remember we were shouting at each other and indeed at Jeremy Paxman, who was shouting at both of us. Tariq and I have chased each other around the globe in studios and debating forums, universities, many places. I consider him one of my very dearest and closest enemies. And I'm also in the unfortunate position because I agree with most of what the opposition say, not just tonight, but generally. I'm an atheist myself. I don't believe in revelations. I don't believe that Moses, Jesus, or Muhammad had any divine instructions. I think they made it up. But, and I'm sure you knew there was a but coming, I'm on this side very uncomfortably because this statement, this House believes religion has no place in the 21st century, is to me as an atheist not just an overstatement, but very wrong indeed. I will come on to exactly why in the coming minutes. First of all, one piece of casuistry which has to be tidied up. Organized. It's been put in since we had the motion agreed. Organized religion, we're now told. This isn't a serious addition to this debate. How could you have disorganized religion? How could you have a religion which wasn't organized by any structure at all? I mean, somebody has to say whether Mass is at 11 o'clock or 11:15, for goodness sake. All religion, all people who believe broadly in a similar thing are going to have some desire to come together, and there's going to be some kind of authority, whether it's in a mosque or a synagogue or a temple or a church or anything else. Of course, all religion in some way is going to be organized. But the reason I wanted to speak on this side is for this reason. In this whole debate, which does matter very much and will matter very much in the century ahead of us, there is a great possibility of completely distancing views which, at the very least, you should listen to. And I've already sensed it this evening. If we had been gathered here in Cambridge at the Union 100 years ago, you would have probably listened in as respectful silence to the clergy and had no possible intervention against their thought, as you do tonight with prominent spokesmen for atheism. It's simply the case that very, very swiftly the tables have turned in recent years, and very swiftly it's become really not very difficult, certainly thank goodness in this country, to talk against religion, and has become rather difficult, particularly for non-believers, to speak up for anything that religion does offer. And it does offer things, and I think we shouldn't ignore them. The problem in this debate is that neither side, and I wish it was possible to speak and advise you to go down the middle door, but neither side in this debate, in this whole debate, not just tonight but generally, ever wants to admit what they miss and what they have got wrong. Religion has got very many things wrong. All sorts of religions have. They always leap into truth claims. They scientize their claims. What they have that is true in part becomes dogmatic so often. There are very many things that religion has got wrong, which Professor Dawkins and his colleagues are very good indeed at explaining. But atheism has got things wrong as well. It is not a flawless system or a flawless belief, and there are things which atheists miss and are, I think, very worried about admitting that they miss, if I may, are very worried about admitting that they miss. The German philosopher who Rowan Williams has already quite quoted tonight, Jürgen Habermas, coined the term a few years ago, a beautiful term, it's worth bearing in mind. He said, he wrote an essay called The Awareness of What is Missing. He just posits the fact that in the secular state, with an atheist mindset, there are some things you miss. And the non-religious very rarely want to mention this. But there are things that they miss. If we were to get rid of religion entirely in the 21st century, very many people, not only themselves would miss it very deeply, but there would be all sorts of questions which people have in their lives, which would remain, if not completely unanswered, then answered incredibly quietly. Secularism and atheism have all sorts of truths to argue, but their voice is very quiet on many things that matter to many people. The voice of atheism is at least quiet in the face of death, in the face of human tragedy, of suffering. It has very little to say to people who seek, for instance, some kind of reconciliation or forgiveness or repentance, all sorts of things which religious traditions have addressed. You may think that the religious tradition is wrong in its origin, but they do address these questions. They have tried to. They have tried to build a philosophy on this. And at the very least, if you were to throw out at this very moment all religion in the 21st century having no place, many people would be deprived of these things. Andrew Copson, in his, I thought, somewhat presumptuous speech, if I may say so, portrayed a future in which, if we just dropped religion, we would be running into the sunlit uplands, where everything would be terrific, we would be reasonable creatures in a reasonable universe with reasonable desires, reasonably answered. Are you sure about that? Are you absolutely sure that if you tell a generation, 2 generations, 3 generations, religion has, and let's remember, no place in the 21st century, are you sure that we arrive at those sunlit uplands? Or is it possible that if you tell people enough that they live a meaningless life in a meaningless universe, in a meaningless existence, that you may just get something like a perpetual version of The Only Way is Essex? Believe it is true or not, religion provided, and I would say provides and will provide in the future, an opportunity for people to ask serious questions about themselves, ask serious questions about the universe and their existence. To quote Larkin, he says in Churchill, "A serious house on serious earth this is, wherein whose blent air all our compulsions meet." It is the case, I would submit, whether you believe, as I say, in the literal truth of religion or not, whether you believe or go to church or synagogue or mosque or whatever yourself, it is the case that these places used to provide, and provide for many people still, a place to ask questions which in other places in their lives, without that, they simply have no such opportunity to ask, to address. You know, somebody said earlier that, have we outgrown it? I just wanted to raise a couple of things. They say, it may seem a contrarian viewpoint. It is not, I can tell you. There are several things that have been cited tonight about religion which need countering, and I'd ask just for your forbearance as I mention these. It's come up several times, community building. Alain de Botton wrote a really very bad book recently called Religion for Atheists, but there were several very good points in it, and one which I'm not sure is able to be refuted is this, that among other things, the church provided people who had nothing in common other than the place that they found themselves in, that they found themselves sitting in a pew beside somebody, with a form of common humanity which is missing in the modern age. Andrew said, well, we've got Facebook and we've got social networking. Many of these things are very good. There's all sorts of good that can come from them. It also means you are very able to agree and to meet all the time people who agree with your point of view. You can found Facebook groups with people who agree with you already. You can found social networking groups with people very like you. I'm sure after you leave Cambridge, You will be able to have old alumni Facebook groups which put you in touch with other people very like you. Church and organized religion, among other things, and I think it's worth noting, allows people to sit beside people in a place with a common aim, with whom otherwise they have absolutely nothing in common, no socioeconomic bond, no cultural bond, maybe, except for the fact that they have found themselves in this place together. One other very quick point before I start to wrap up. On several times tonight, it's already been mentioned about the simple evil that religion does because of abortion and so on. I would just make the following intervention in this. Many times in debates in the House of Lords and in the Commons about abortion, about euthanasia and these sort of things, yes, religions have got very many of these things wrong. But if you look at the contributions to these debates, the contribution of the religious to abortion issues and to right to life issues and to partial birth abortions and all sorts of other things and euthanasia is not nothing. It injects a sense into society and into the debate as long as it cannot harm and hamper scientific progress, and I'll get onto that in a second. Provides a voice which reasons, and I would argue sometimes holds back advances which many people, such as Andrew, would be lovely about rushing straight ahead to, believing we're going to this place which is fine. Now look, I'm just going to wrap up with this. Richard Dawkins said at the very opening, is it true? That was what you said you wanted to address. No. And yes. No, it is not true. It is not literally true. But can religion carry truth? Yes. Schopenhauer says in his dialogue on religion, he says, truth may be like water. It needs a vessel to carry it. We don't have very many vessels. And if you believe that we can go into the 21st century not only saying we don't need a vessel ourselves, but nobody else should have one, I don't believe that would be a period of greater understanding. The deal, and let me just say, you won't often hear me. Those of you who have heard me here before will know I don't normally do reconciliation, but I'm going to have a quick go. The deal in the 21st century must be this. Religions must not have the ability to dictate the lives of people who do not follow those religions. Religion must have no ability to dictate law or to dictate the lives of people who do not follow those religions. That, I think, should be the thing that religion gives up. Largely it has given it up. The Church of England has given up most of it, and I think that's a good thing. It has led the way. Religions will have to concede that, but the non-religious should make a concession too. The non-religious should accept, in the 21st century, that it is not the case that religion has nothing whatsoever to say. It does. It has a voice. It has a contribution to make. It is thoughtful in parts. It has thought things over. If the 21st century is to work, it will involve all of these things. It will involve religion knowing its place, but it will also involve atheists and secularists knowing that their place is not to dismiss, deride, and laugh at as meaningless, something which seeks for meaning. If the 21st century is to work, religion will have a place. People can agree with Professor Dawkins and his colleagues, but no rational person could agree with this motion. Thank you.